Well, black people are Native Americans. We've had a lot of proof that you know some of us started here in this land. We wasn't Everybody wasn't brought over from Africa.
What are they doing here? They're Indians.
This is one of my many unsuccessful experiments. You see, with Indians, there's absolutely nothing to be done. There's the same difference between a Negro and an Indian as there is between a dog and a coyote. You can put a dog on a leash, beat him, and he'll always be there to lick your feet. Take away a coyote's liberty, and you've cut off his heir. An Indian will never be a slave. No one has ever been able to make them reproduce in captivity. They do not eat, they do not talk, they do not sleep, they do not make love.
There are several things that are significant about it. Of course, one of them is the way that colonialism tries to develop all kinds of elaborate classification terms for different kinds of people, but that's another subject. The most significant thing here is to reveal the much greater amounts of Native American ancestry that are present within the African American population than most people realize, because they might have been misled by the use of terms like mulatto and also people of color.
After the African, LeVar Burton, had been told that his name was to be Toby, and he refused it, and he was beaten to make him say his name was Toby.
That was the dramatization. How much of that actually was recounted to you? I mean, was there a lot of interweaving?
A lot of it, I thought maybe you were going to ask, and maybe you are in another way, is how much of the book is fact and how much is fiction. Well, a whole lot of it's fiction. Well, a whole lot of it's fiction. Well, a whole lot of it's fiction.
Now, this is just a tiny bit of information now.
But they take it as huge.
Right, because it's cracking open the door.
There's a place in Africa you could say that I'm from. A tribe? I am thrilled. It puts a name, a place, a location, a people.
Hank really is concerned that the science isn't really there yet for you to be giving them the name of a tribe.
I think for most companies, I would be concerned too.
But what about your own company?
We have the largest...
He didn't exclude you. He included you.
But we have the largest set of sequences from Africa. And so with that, we're able to provide some level of probability in terms of frequency.
But he would say that even though you have the largest database, it's still small on the scope of things.
As I said, I share those concerns. We don't oversell. I mean, we just say, look, we provide a service. If you're interested in exploring a tiny bit of your DNA and trace its ancestry, we can do that.
When you say it's a tiny little amount,
it's less than 0.1%. Less than 0.1%. Less than 0.1%.
And that's pretty teeny.
Yeah, but for people who know nothing about any of them, I think it's very important.
You do not know a goddamn thing about Africa. I am from Detroit, Motown. So you can want Tootsie your monkey ass back to Africa if you want to.
Hello guys, how y'all doing? Happy Educational Friday. I hope y'all are doing well. Come on in the building. We got a good one this week. We got a very good one this week, actually. And it's going to tell us a lot about our genealogy and a lot about our ancestors. This week, we're discussing Castle Garden. Is that the name of it? Sorry. Castle Garden, which was prior to Ellis Island. That's the place prior to Ellis Island. And in this place is where we find a lot of the clears coming in through it's Castle Garden. I'm sorry. We find a lot of clears coming in from Europe through Castle Garden. Now, Castle Garden was the first port that they opened in New York. And this, again, like I said, this is the first time they're influxing. Is that a word? This is the first time they're flooding a whole bunch of immigrants into the area, to the country. Let me say this, Black America, they lied to you in the books, and they tell us that these crackers have already been here. That's not the truth. White people didn't start coming to America by and large until the late 1800s, okay? I want to say mid 1800s, but for sure, late 1800s. Prior to that, it was a lot of melanated Europeans, and there was also a lot of clears, but not as much as we see today. The white people we see, the clears that we see walking around America are probably first, second, or third generation Americans. They literally just got here. And you might run across a couple of clears who will lie, because most of them lie, and swear to God that their family was here through the Mayflower, and that's possible. But the fact of the matter is, all of these clears came in much, much later, and way later than we were taught. And why is this important? Because remember, we're figuring out our identity. We're figuring out that we own this land, that we are home. Because for the longest, they had us believing that we came from Africa. So we were lost, basically not knowing where we were. Lost at home. But now we're waking up and we're realizing that we've been played. There's witchcraft happening. They're telling us one thing when something completely opposite happened. For instance, you always hear the people say, immigrants built this country. Immigrants built this country. That is the biggest lie ever told by anybody in the world. No immigrant ever came into America and built anything as far as infrastructure or anything as far as systems. Every single immigrant, white people included, every single immigrant that came into America came into an already made, already to go country. And they all took over these places, and then they started coming to the internet lying, especially during political seasons. This is why you see a lot of immigrants will tell you straight to your face, oh, y'all need us. Y'all need us. Immigrants built the country. That's all witchcraft. It's a mental manipulations, Black America. That's why we're here. We're going to discuss these Europeans that came in here through America. And remember, I showed y'all earlier, there was an influx of people. I'm going to show you right now. What I played earlier, because this is kind of the same thing that we're dealing with here. So I was talking about Spain earlier today on the Morning Joe. Shout out to the Morning Joes. If you haven't already, make sure y'all pull up over there. But I was talking about the invasion of Spain. I think it's the Moroccan people. Don't get me the line. But either way, we spoke about how these people invaded that country, and how and I told y'all that it wasn't a regular invasion. I told you guys that the powers that be, the enemy, literally poured those people in. Hold on, because I want to show y'all so y'all can see. And like the video if you haven't already, please. Thank you so much. Hold on. I want to show y'all this video because this is exactly the way they did it back then. This is the same way they did it, except this time they came through a boat. Look at this. Hold on. Let me share the video for y'all. So they just, right now in 2026, Spain was just invaded by a whole bunch of immigrants, illegal aliens. Look at this. Okay, you see what we see here? Think of that as the same thing, a little bit more organized, but yet and still the exact same thing happening to America in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. Just like in Spain, the powers that be literally took thousands upon thousands of people and dumped them in foreign lands. That's what they're doing in 2026. I keep telling y'all, when it comes down to this enemy, he is not smart. He's just clever. That means he knows how to outthink a lot of people, okay? So that means he's not going to come up with any new tactics. He's going to use the same old tactics, and he's going to hope and pray that you remain asleep and never wake up to understanding what's going on, okay? But at the end of the day, this is the exact same way Black America, or America as we know it, was basically infiltrated with these immigrants through Ellis Island, Angel Island, and Castle Garden. And we're on Castle Garden. We spoke about Ellis Island. We spoke about Angel Island. Now we're going to talk about Castle Garden. And let me just say this before we get started. When it comes down to these ports where they were pouring all of these people in, one thing I'm starting to pick up is this was very strategic. What do I mean by that? When they were opening these ports and allowing certain people into America, it wasn't random. They literally sat down in a meeting or at a table and they said, we want this group, this group, this group, and they're going to come at this time. And then we're going to do this group, and this group, and they're going to come at that time. And then that group's going to come here. I'll give you an example. So for instance, with Angel Island, you know, a lot of the Asians came through Angel Island. Somebody had to sit behind the scenes and say, in the early 1900s, we're going to open Angel Island and we're going to have the influx of Asians coming in. Same thing with Ellis Island and all of these things. But I'm saying all that to say this stuff is literally planned. Remember, the game is chess, not checkers. Checkers implies you just jumping over each other ignorantly. Chess requires strategy. Okay, so please, y'all, know that these immigrants are poured in on purpose, and it's for many, many reasons, but we'll get to it. But either way, Castle Garden was one of the earlier places that opened, or one of the earlier ports. And this Castle Garden literally allowed North and Western Europeans to pour into America. Now, if you let Wikipedia tell you, Wikipedia will say that it was hundreds of thousands or 8 million. They always fudge the numbers. When you guys are doing research, think about it like this. If it benefits them, they make the number bigger. If it benefits us, they make the number smaller. Does that make sense? Because this is how you got to learn. This is how you got to be able to decode this stuff when you're doing research. Because it ain't just enough to read the book. You got to be able to use your discernment. So when it comes to the benefits, when you listening at any history, they always inflate the numbers when it benefits them. And then they shrink the numbers when it benefits us. So for instance, they'll tell us that 8 million Europeans came in through Castle Garden, and then 100 million Europeans came in through Ellis Island. They're telling you that because they want you to believe that there's that many white people in America. That's not true. But they're telling you that because it benefits them. Now, if it benefits us, they'll say, oh yeah, 8 million clears came in through Castle Garden, but 100 million Negroes came in from Africa. Because remember, it's about what benefits the people telling the story. Yes, she is true. Lies. So we're going to get into that, though. Y'all, listen, the reason why we're going over this is because y'all need to know what happened in history. The only way to understand today is to understand what happened in the past. And you're going to be able to expose the tactics happening today if you understood what happened in the past. That's how people come on the internet. Oh, she's psychic. Oh, she got psychic abilities. No, a lot of times, not all, a lot of times people literally just have discernment and they can understand that this enemy ain't who we think he is. Okay, so now let's get started with Castle Garden. Remember, Castle Garden is the first port, or at least one of, according to what we're hearing. It's the first port that welcomes a bunch of immigrants. And this Castle Garden only is allowing North and Western Europeans, not anybody, just the North and Western Europeans. Let's pull them up. And y'all like the video, please, if you haven't already. Shout out to every single person in the building. I really appreciate y'all for being here. Y'all don't have this to do, but you are, okay? So y'all come on in. All right. Let me share the tab. Castle Garden. Now, remember, Castle Garden and Ellis Island are one and the same. It's the same location. It's just they changed the name, okay? So now Castle Garden, this is happening in New York, late 1800s. They got a whole crap ton of Western and Northern Europeans being flooded into America. It says Castle Garden, where immigrants came before Ellis Island. It says everyone knows that immigrants came through Ellis Island to settle in America, but where did they go before that? The answer is Castle Garden, now known as the Castle Clinton National Monument on the southern tip of Manhattan. It says originally a fort, Castle Garden was constructed between 1808 and 1811, and at that time wasn't even connected to the island of Manhattan. By 1821, the U.S. Army released the fort to New York City, having seen little military action. The city turned the area into an entertainment center with a restaurant and a theater. And according to the Battery Conservation, for $5, ticket holders could promenade around the walls and sip mint juleps, ginseng, punch liquor, and it sounds great. So that tells me Black Americans took over it. The indigenous population up there in New York probably took over it. That's what it sounds like. And remember, if you ever wondered what the Black indigenous of New York looked like, think of Old Dirty Bastard. He was a Shinnecock Indian. His family literally hailed from up there. That's where they come from. That was their origins, okay? If you ever want to know what the ancient Black indigenous in New York looked like, always reference Old Dirty Bastard, okay? These wasn't no bums neither. It goes on to say by 1855, land was filled in to connect Castle Garden to Manhattan. And on August 1st, 1855, Castle Clinton became the immigrant landing depot, New York State's first immigrant processing station. Until then, immigrants had sailed into the docks on the east side of Manhattan. But from 1855 to 1890, Castle Garden processed over 8 million immigrants. I don't believe it. It was also responsible for the term Castle Garden, slang used by Yiddish-speaking immigrants to denote any space that was noisy, chaotic, or confusing. It says Castle Garden stopped processing immigrants in 1890, and 2 years later, the larger Ellis Island opened up. From there, it had a long life as the New York City Aquarium from 1896 to 1941, and today it stands as a national monument. So look, you got Castle Garden. Before they open up Ellis Island, a bigger port, Castle Garden is open. And they're claiming 8 million Europeans are coming in. But these ain't just any old Europeans. These are not any old just Europeans coming in. Hold on, let me see. I think I took a screenshot. If not, y'all ever heard the stories from, oh no, I don't think this is the right screenshot. Okay, not this one. Do y'all remember, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. I was reading something. Listen, do y'all remember, I forgot what I was about to say. So the immigrants came through Castle Garden, and that was prior to Ellis Island. And listen, they want you to believe that these white people were already here. This is why when they give you history lessons, they'll always paint the pictures, because these are all depictions. It's never real pictures. They always paint, literally draw a lot of white people in the pictures. That's all mental manipulation. It's psychological fixing is what it is. Because if you believe that they had that many white people already here, then you're more inclined to believe that they were here before you. Also, even if you don't think they were here before you, you'll be more inclined to believe that they were here when you got here, meaning they have just as much stake and right and claim in this land as you do. And that's not true. So they saying 8 million immigrants came in through Castle Garden. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. They probably had some, and maybe it had 1 million or 2. Maybe. I don't know. But do I believe it was 8 million? Absolutely not. But the Clears were extremely strategic, or whoever this was behind this. They were clearly strategic on who it was they let into the America. They did not let anybody. Oh, that's what I was saying. Y'all ever heard Irish or Italians speak about how they were treated poorly when they first got to America? Well, the reason for that is because they were not classified as white. I don't know about the Irish, but definitely the Italians. Those people were not classified as white. They were actually classified as kind of like a other, if it makes sense. And they didn't get the privileges of the rest of us. That is because even amongst the Europeans, the powers that be, the enemies thought that it was only a certain group of Europeans they wanted here. And remember, I also told y'all, we learned on this channel that when the whites started pouring in through Ellis Island, the ones who were already here literally immediately delineated. They put out whole newspaper articles telling everybody in America that the new whites coming in are not us and we are not them. They literally delineated. I want to go to this other article. Hold on. Because Clears, if y'all ever paid attention, I've looked at downtown New Orleans, and there's a statue of an immigrant family. And I find it odd because it's right downtown, right there on the Mississippi River where all the ports and where the port is and a lot of the boats dock and all of that stuff. And immediately I remember seeing that saying, oh, these mother effers is dirty. They literally throwing in our face that we came here. Y'all were already here. That's at least what I got from looking at this immigrant statue. And the first thing popped in my head was New Orleans ain't the only place they got an immigrant statue. I'm pretty sure if any of you guys go downtown to wherever you are, I'm pretty sure if you go downtown, there's some sort of immigration or immigrant statue, a plaque or something. This is literally them showing you that they came here after you, that you are already here and they are the immigrants, okay? But it's odd that they get here, and because they take on the American idea and ideology, they automatically forget where they come from, and now they're the owners of America. Now they get to be the ones who get to put America and the flag on their backs. That's a problem. Let's get into this article. Now, these people can literally go and look up their ancestries. You know how I tell y'all do genealogy? Well, apparently the Clears are doing genealogy too. But when they do genealogy, they all got to go through the family search and all of these places, and they got to go straight to Ellis Island records, Castle Garden Island records, and all these other and Angel Island records. They have to go through those records to find where they come from because all of these people are immigrants. It says, let's get into the search in Ellis Island records. So it says, do you have U.S. immigrants among your ancestors? What experience did they have when they first reached America? This is them talking to the Clears and the other immigrants. Where they met with a bustling city, swindlers and thieves, or a hearty welcome. For many earlier immigrants, New York was the choice getaway into America called the Golden Door. It says, when your ancestors simply arrived at New York Harbor in America's earliest days, passed through Castle Garden Depot from 1855 to 1890, or underwent inspection at Ellis Island from 1892 to 1954, your ancestors' immigration records holds lots of clues about who they are, why they came, and what experiences they had. So now the Clears are literally going on family search, doing their genealogy, but they have to go through these ports to find out who they are. Whereas Black America, when you do your genealogy, you're not going to go through any ports. You're going to go back to the 1900s, the 1800s, the 1700s, and if you're lucky, even the 1600s, and you won't find one port. Remember, it's a Jedi mind trick. If you believe you're the foreigner, they get to take your place as the owner of the land. So now Clears are doing genealogy to find out who they are, and I think that it is imperative that Black America do our genealogy. Okay? Because this is extremely important, because they know who they are. They'll never come and tell us who they are, though. They know exactly who they are, but they need us to buy into the fact that they're more American than us, and they are not. Okay? Castle Garden Immigrant Depot. Quote, it has always been great enough to enable everybody to understand the position of that poor exile of Aaron who went up to be examined for a teacher in the public schools. And being asked who discovered America was not at all clear, but being asked where the discovered landed, answered with triumphant promptitude, Castle Garden. Did y'all catch that? It says, I'm going to read it one more time. It has always been great enough to enable everybody to understand the position of that poor exile of Aaron who went up to be examined for a teacher in the public schools. And being asked who discovered America was not at all clear, but being asked where the discovered landed, answered with triumph and promptitude, Castle Garden. So pay attention to what this is. When they ask who discovered America, it's not clear. But when they ask where the discovered landed, it's Castle Garden. They're literally telling you in this article, in this quote right here, there was no discoverer, okay? We just came over here and took your shit. That's all they're saying. It wasn't no discovery. Ain't no Christopher Columbus. Oh, that's some bullshit. There is no one person that we can point to and say this person's discovered America. That's what they're saying. What they're saying is there is no one person because we all just packed our bags and came intruded on your home. Y'all better learn comprehension now. Let's move on. It says in the 19th century, the term immigrant was used far more popularly by the public than the term immigrant. Now, hold on, because I'm going to say this before I pull up Google, because Google done changed this definition. The way I was taught was to immigrate with an E means you already belong to a continent or a country, and you're just moving around in that continent or country. I'll give you an example. When I was growing up, I was taught to immigrate with an E means if I'm born in New Orleans and I move to Georgia, I would be immigrating with an E. Okay, but if I immigrate with an I, I'm a foreigner or an alien coming from a foreign land. That means I'm not from America. I'm from a whole nother country or a whole nother continent. That's how I was taught in school. But I recently looked the definition up and it has changed. Let me ask Google. What is the difference? Hold on. I hate that phone. What is the difference between immigration with an E versus immigration with an I? The difference depends on your point of view. That's already a red flag. It says immigration with an I means moving into a new country to live there, and immigration with an E means leaving your old country to live somewhere else. This is a bunch of bullshit. They making this shit up as they go. As a matter of fact, I'll give you an example. A lot of Black people in America who would leave the South and migrate to the North, those were immigrants with an E. But when the cracker and the African and the Asian came from Asia, Europe, and Africa, they immigrated with an I. Now, what's the difference between them and us? The difference is we were already here. We're literally moving around on our own land. It's no different if I own the block and instead of me sleeping in one house 7 days a week, I sleep in this one on Monday, I sleep in that one on Wednesday, and I sleep in that one on Friday, and that one on the end of the corner on the weekend. I can do that because I bought the whole block. The block belongs to me. That's the difference between us immigrating with an E versus them immigrating with an I. They coming on a whole block that they don't know nobody on, don't own no houses, and they stake and claim to our shit. Okay? Now let me get back into the article. It says Castle Garden Immigrant Depot was America's first facility dedicated entirely to the welfare of immigrants coming to America. The facility opened to the public on August 3rd, 1855, and closed on April 30th, 1890. It says between August 3rd, 1855 and December 31st, 1889, the last year of which data was recorded, 8,280 million and 917 of the 10,956,910 immigrants who entered into the United States, 75%, passed through Castle Garden. So they're saying 75% of the almost 11,000 immigrants came through Castle Garden, okay? It says the largest ethnic group that came through the facility were Germans, followed by the Irish, Swedish, Italians, Scottish, Russians, Norwegians, Swiss, and French. Are y'all catching that? This is the order in which they were putting these immigrants and bringing them to the country. It started with the Irish, the English, the Swedish, Italian, Scottish, Russian, Norwegians, Swiss, and French. It says today about 20% of Americans can trace their ancestry to someone who came through Castle Garden. The facility was the first of its kind to take detailed records of the people who passed through its gate. It says officials recorded the names of each individual and family, the vessels they arrived in, their destination, the amount of money they had on hand, and even the names of family members already in the United States. Pause. Where did they get that from? How did they know to do that to the immigrants coming in through Ellis Island? Because we were already doing it here. Remember, we're the most documented group of people on the face of this earth. And all our documentation ain't by that cracker. He's a Johnny come lately too. So they took our documentation style and used it and adopted it to document these immigrants, which I'm kind of glad they did, because when these crackers get to acting crazy and acting like they own America, I love asking them what part of Europe they came from. Okay? So these people are coming in through Castle Garden, and these are the immigrants, or you're looking at the descendants of those immigrants walking around America today. If you let them tell it, they say 20% of them are of the 11,000. 75% of the 11,000 actually made it through. And it says today about 20% of Americans can trace their ancestry to somebody who came through Castle Garden. It says the facility was the first of its kind to take detail. Oh, I've read that. Officials recorded the names of each individual family. Read that. It says, I'm trying to catch where I left off. Castle Garden provided these new arrivals a safe place to buy railroad tickets, exchange money, contact relatives, rest, and even wash up before leaving. Though most of its original records were destroyed and little of the facility remains, original stories and images of the facility have been preserved in newspapers and on other media. Taken together, these records allow historians to pull back the veil of the past and attempt to recreate the first steps of these future Americans in their adopted land. Future Americans in their adopted land. Now, if you talk to them today, they'll swear to God, they ain't no future Americans adopted nothing. They're American, and they are not. And they are not. The white people are foreigners just as much as these Nigerians we battling. They're the same foreigner. They just came earlier. All white people, I don't give a damn. If you ain't melanated and you ain't Black American, you are a foreigner. More than likely a foreigner with the hard ER. And that's why I love talking about origins with people. When they come over here hollering America, 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 I'm an American. Know where you come from, who your people them is. That's what I want to know. All right. Sorry, y'all. I had to drink some water. The Castle Garden entering the rotunda. The Castle Garden rotunda was the large open space directly below the building's roof. This space held the majority of offices located within depot. It says, as well as the superintendent's office on the second floor. It was also the most cramped and crowded space in the entire facility. Upon entering the rotundo, one Norwegian immigrant described the scenes as so loud that one had to shout into the ear of the listener in order to be heard. Another said, the moment I arrived, I was met by a violent roar. The immense room was packed by people representing every nationality in the world. Here, there was much to listen to, but nothing to understand. Yiddish-speaking immigrants coined the term Kesselgarten to describe the often noisy, confusing, and chaotic scene they witnessed as they passed through. I wonder what the Black Americans were thinking about that. The registry desk. Upon entering the facility, immigrants were separated into two lines and funneled into the registry desk. One line was for those who could speak English, while the other line was for those who understood other language, usually German and French speakers. At the desk, immigrants were required to register by answering questions about themselves and their intentions. To help those who couldn't understand English, translators knowledgeable with multiple languages were utilized, though communication often proved difficult. It says, one observer noted, a young fellow was asked if he were alone. No, sir, he said boldly. And when asked who was with him, he answered, sure, my box. Another wanted to register 2 gamecocks as he bought them with him from Tappery or Tappery. Sure, quote, this is what he said. Sure, I paid their passage, he said. Still another, an old woman, on being asked her name, said it was on her box luggage, and if we wanted to know Sure, we could go and see. And upon being asked by a bystander how then her box could be found, her answer was, Bobby Jabba, whatever that is. And isn't me name painted on it? And isn't me name painted on it? Okay. With much difficulty, her name was finally asserted. So listen, or ascertained. Listen. So these people are going through hell and high water coming through Ellis Island. They don't speak English. You got people coming in with gamecocks. Ain't that a bird? Ain't a gamecock a bird? I want to see what that is. What the hell is a gamecock? Gamecock. Animal. The fuck is that? Oh, these niggas bringing in chickens and roosters and shit. This a gamecock. So a cracker came in with 2 of these. Talking about they need to be registered. I know you fucking lying. Cause what? How big is these motherfuckers? 15 to 20 inches tall, weighs about 4 to 6 pounds. So it's like a bird. It's like a turkey or a rooster or something. Anyways, this is what they coming into America with, okay? They don't speak English. You got to look on their luggage for their names. They got bad attitudes. It's loud. I'm pretty sure it's musty as dogs in there. I'm pretty sure lice is running rampant. I'm pretty sure smallpox, chicken pox, and all the other pox was in that bitch heavy too. The baggage depot. When Castle Garden first opened in 1855, the processing of immigrants' luggage was haphazard and chaotic. Bags were dumped in an unorganized pile just outside the rotunda. Immigrants were given unrestricted access to the pile to find their luggage, and allegations of theft were common. The space was enlarged in 1857, and a new system of baggage delivery was introduced to further prevent theft. This new building, located off Castle Garden's west side, was 11,393 square feet and held 38 stalls capable of containing 80 ordinary-sized travel bags. The facility allowed 30,000 or 3,040 packages to be stored at a time, and it says the facility was expanded later in 1869 in order to accommodate 15,000 pieces of baggage. So now they expanding the baggage place so they can keep other people coming in and they can have somewhere to store the bags. It says often immigrants who arrived at Castle Garden were unable to pay for the tickets necessary to get them to their intended destinations. It says they would usually leave their bags at the depot until their friends and family could send proper funds to pay for their travel. This could take days, and immigrants would were allowed to store their luggage at the depot for up to 6 days. Baggage could be sent for and delivered to any place in New York, Brooklyn, Jersey City, Hoboken, and Westchester County. If not the immediate area, baggage would be loaded onto steamships and taken to nearby railroad stations for departure. Let's talk about the exchange office. The exchange office was a place where immigrants could exchange foreign currency for American money. The office was required to physically post the current exchange rate on Wall Street and update it as the rate changed throughout the day. With the stock exchange just a few blocks away, communication between the two was almost instantaneous, and the offer exchange rate would often change suddenly without warning. So they robbing the new immigrants. Some immigrants waiting in line to exchange money were convinced that they were being cheated, as the rates they were offered were worse than those offered to the person in front of them. A reporter of Harper's Weekly recorded a story in March 1871 about a German Mecklenburger farmer who had arrived with his savings sewn into the lining of his shirt. When he arrived to open his package, he found his two $50 bills had become stuck together and that it was impossible to detach them. They stuck together as one, as nicely as if they had been glued together by an artist. The distressed man tried desperately to peel them carefully apart with his thumbnail, it says, but only succeeded in tearing the paper. According to the reporter, he commenced crying when somebody advised him to give the refractory bills a cold water bath. He caught the idea and did so, and lo, the bills came apart, and he was in his $150 bill was made good for $100. It says great now was his joy, and he was shortly after seen treating at least a score of his shipmates to snaps and lagers. So he was buying everybody beers. So they was robbing these people. The railroad office, here it go. 3 railroad companies operated out of the railroad office: the New York and Erie, the New York Central, and the Pennsylvania Central Railroads. Now, let me tell you something. What's happening around this time? Remember, before these crackers came here, we owned the railroads. That was us. That belonged to us. We created it. We built it, right? Now, they're going to gradually take the railroads away from us. It starts with this one white man was able to acquire the railroads. I want to say in Georgia. Don't give me the line. I think it was Atlanta. But white people started acquiring the railroad system, and then it started trickling over and over again, meaning they were slowly taking the railroads away from black people, and the white people were taking over it. Now, when they were taking over it, a lot of things was being done with this railroad system, a lot of trafficking back and forth of people and also goods. But even more importantly, remember we talk about the orphan trains? We speak about the orphan trains all the time because a lot of these white people that's coming in through here, they didn't come through here. A lot of these people is clones. A lot of these people is Cabbage Patch Kids. They're going to lie and say that they came through this Ellis Island and through these ports, but they are not true. They were shipping people, mass amounts of people using the railroad system. And yes, they were shipping immigrants that came through those ports, but most importantly, they were shipping Cabbage Patch Kids all around the world through this goddamn railroad system. Okay? Now, back to what we were saying. They were the only railways with connectors to the New York City and were thus given the privilege to sell tickets at the facility. Railroad agents would ask where an immigrant intended to go, pull out maps, and calculate the cost, including baggages, and immigrants would pay it in full. It was not uncommon to find immigrants short on funds, asking for generosity from kind strangers. Others would send messages requesting money from friends or family already in the United States and would need to wait until the funds arrived by mail in order to pay for their trip. Similar to the registry desk, communication at the railroad office was also difficult. One reporter noted a particular incident involving a Swedish immigrant who asked to go to Farmington. This response was hardly an adequate answer because there were, at the time, some 21 cities and villages with that same name in the United States. When asked by a Danish clerk in which state the particular Farmington lay, he had no answer. He had no further address than the Farmington, USA, because most Swedes were far west travelers. Illinois and Iowa were consequently suggested, but he was still at a loss. Finally, he remembered something about Dada or Dakota, and it was found to be Farmington, Dakota County, Minnesota, a fact that proved correct by letters he afterward produced from his trunk. Now listen, these are people coming into America with nowhere to go. Some of them have family, yes. Some of them have family. But the fact of the matter is most of them don't. They like to write it in the stories like a lot of them have family, so we won't think that these are just a bunch of people like this. Remember, it's all about witchcraft. It's all about getting you to believe something that's not true. So they're going to write in his story that most of these people had families. They're going to say most of these people had new people already here. They came with money. This is what they're going to say. They're going to say these people came with money. They're going to say some of these people came with names and languages. And I'm here to tell you that's not true. The same mayhem you see right here happening in 2026, that's what was happening at these ports. Do not let these depictions in his story fool you. The same thing happening right here is what was happening at them ports. Okay? They just know that most people don't know what happened at the ports. So they're going to make it seem like this is a one-off. No, it isn't. This enemy is not smart. He's not intelligent. He's just clever. He understands how to trick you. That's all. It says the rotunda. After immigrants were finished in the rotunda, they were free to explore around the facility. The immigrant depot retained much of the details and structure of Castle Garden Opera House with lighting fixtures, ornate details on supporting columns, and even much of the second floor balcony remaining remarkably untouched. Do you know Black Americans built these places before the white folks took it over? Remember, the white people didn't come here and build nothing. White people did not come to America and build one thing. They came in and took over stuff that was already built. Remember, the lie is for you to believe that immigrants built this country when they did nothing. Only thing they did was come to a place that was already built. So when you see these old places and they look kind of dope and it's all cathedral and all that, that's us. We built that. It goes on to say the facility had 2 snack bars which sold rolls and coffee. A small restaurant remained open most of the day. Within the rotunda, immigrants would find local missionaries passing out literature to believers and approved boarding housing agents advertising their services to newcomers. Immigrants also had access to an outdoor promenade on the second floor, which ran the length of the wall and had the best view of New York Harbor in the city. It says benches were placed around the facility for those intending to wait around, and these often were placed around. And these often doubled as beds for those unable to find or afford a place to stay. Operating hours for the facility were listed as 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., but the facility often remained open later to finishing processing the day's immigrants. On July 10, 1876, at around 5:15 p.m., a fire broke out on the second floor of the rotunda, supposedly started by a Mennonite immigrant carelessly knocking lit ashes out of his pipe. The building ignited fast while 300 immigrants were still being processed inside of the building. John Lucy, a sailor on the USS Minnesota, sitting docked in the harbor, was on leave in Battery Park when he heard the commotion. They sacrificed a whole bunch of immigrants. Rushing into the building through the thick smoke that had filled the rotunda, he led hundreds of immigrants to safety outside the walls. At one point, he is described as jumping in and out of the old embrasures on the wall, which would have been fitted with glass windows at the time. John saved countless lives that day, and for his heroics, he was presented with the Medal of Honor. No one seriously injured in the accident, thank God, but the fire was completely gutted the remains of the old Castle Garden Opera House. The building was rebuilt that November, though the second floor gallery and much-loved outdoor promenade was never replaced. Now, normally in history, whenever a fire happens, you know how that goes. They try not to get rid of something. Now look at this depiction. They want us to believe that this is the rotunda. Y'all see this depiction? If you look at the details in the drawing in this picture, this a cold ass building. This ain't no regular building you see today. Look at the details in this building. This is from a depiction. Somebody drew it, but it's still an artist. Somebody sat there, looked at the rotunda, or sat there with a picture, and they literally drew out all of these details. This was a cold-ass building. Guess who built that building? We did. And just like everything else we built, they have a fire, and then all of a sudden, they have to rebuild it. The reason why they cause fires to tear down these buildings is because that's the only way to completely get rid of something. Remember, if you burn it to ashes, it is no more. So you'll see throughout history, there's a whole bunch of fires. Remember, we looked at all the great fires of the 1800s. Pick a random city out your brain right now and go to Google and put the Great Fire of, and watch it show you a name, a date, and a location, and even people. They always use fire, right? Thank you, Latasha. They always use fire to hide evidence. That's the whole purpose of a fire. So for them to say a immigrant man was flicking ashes out of his pipe and that caused the whole building to burn down, you got to know what was going on. You got to know. You got to know, okay? This is all a bunch of cap. Bathing rooms. Before leaving the rotunda, all immigrants entered the bathing rooms to the left and the right of the main exit. They were provided with soap, water, and towels and were required, because they was nasty and didn't wash their ass from home, but were required to wash themselves thoroughly before exiting the building. You know, this is a health hazard if they don't. This is why they made them people scrub their asses. Because remember, these are clears coming in through immigrant cities, through on these boats, disease filled, and all this other stuff. So they are requiring that these people wash their ass before they leave these buildings and this rotunda. Because if not, they'll spread disease to all of the people in America. They didn't bathe. No, they did not bathe. They didn't even brush their own teeth. They didn't learn to do that till they got here. Remember, we the only people who created washing our ass. That come from us. So they don't know how to wash their ass when they get here. They don't wash their ass where they come from. They are required. They give them soap, towels, and water and told them you have to wash your ass before you leave. And these are the descendants that we dealing with today. We dealing with the descendants of these people. These poor, diseased whites coming through these ports. It's their descendants who be all on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and even in real life being racist. It's them. And the only reason they was able to be successfully racist is because we didn't know that this was their past. We didn't know where they came from. We were under the illusion that they had just as much right to hear than we did. And that was a lie. When you know who they are, you look at them way different. You will never look at a cracker the same when you know exactly who they are and exactly where they come from. They were disease-ridden pigs, no cap. They were. And they made them wash their ass in order for them to come to America. You see how that go? Yes, barn animals. Y'all remember even in history, they'll talk about how they was bathing and eating and shit with their dogs. There you go. There you go. There you go. You see it in real time, 4K. That these the people. And I'm pretty sure if that one immigrant came in with a gamecock, I'm pretty sure they came in with horses, cows, dogs, cats, rats, roaches. I'm pretty sure they had all kinds of shit coming through there. It is a pelagic exchange, the meeting place of the tribes of the sons of men. Here they are to be found in all costumes, from the white sheepskin jacket of the Hungarian to the thick woolen wraps of the Hollander. Grouped in every possible altitude, some exhausted by a long voyage, sleeping on the floor, some cooking, some smoking, some sitting and looking out on the way on what they can see of the new world. Because remember, this is a new world. With wandering eyes, they are a study for an artist. So they made sure they had a real good view at the rotunda. And this is to make them feel like they're coming into heaven. Remember, the crackers advertised America to the immigrant as the new world. Meaning, this is what they did. They sent out advertisement through media, through newspaper, radio, whatever they had going on. And they was telling all the immigrants, hey, if you are suffering political oppression, religious oppression, slavery, famine, whatever, all the things that you're suffering, we can take you to the new world and you'll have a whole better life. This is where that American dream comes in. Y'all ever heard of the term, the American dream? Put a 3 in the chat if you've ever heard of the term, the American dream. That dream was for them. This is why Black America has always said that we get the nightmare piece of that. Because in order for them to have their dream, we have to remain in a sleep state and allow them to say that they are the real Americans. But that's not the truth. The reason why they brought them over here and told them they can have this American dream is they needed them to overpopulate America. Really, originally, I think they thought they were going to overpopulate us. But that's not going to happen. But either way, they bought them here because they wanted these people to become the new Americans. And we're not ever supposed to know that they're disease-ridden Slavic slaves. That's all they are. That's who they are. And if you look around America today, I have a whole thing on YouTube called Poor Whites. If you look around America today, most white people are poor. Most white people are poor, even in 2026. I know it sounds crazy because we've been under indoctrination and witchcraft to believe that the white man is here and we're there. But the fact of the matter is, most white people in America are poor. Facts. Okay? Now, let's get back into it. Outside the rotunda, as an immigrant exited the rotunda, they came upon a second area of the facility fenced off from the rest of Battery Park. This space contained an information bureau, a small hospital, and the labor bureau. Oh, so they can go get checkups, they can go get information on where they're going, and they can probably find them a job. After concluding their businesses at these locations, immigrants left the facility to begin their new lives in America. Somebody at my door, and I don't have no company. Hold on, y'all. Hello?
Hey, is this Nicole's house?
No.
Okay, thank you. I'm so sorry.
No problem. Girl, did y'all hear that? Why this white girl knocked on my door talking about, is this Nicole's house? Anyways. Is this Nicole? She better get a drone case. She look like she has the cost of living too. Poor whites. Poor whites. Anyways, poor whites, they everywhere. But listen, what you'll find is most white people are poor. They're absolutely poor. They don't have anything. That's why I have this thing on YouTube called The Poor Whites. Go look it up. Like the girl who just knocked on my door, she look a mess. They are poor, poor, poor. But the illusion is for you to believe that they're here and you are there, or you are at the bottom. That's not true, okay? The hospital. Castle Garden Hospital was located to the right of the main entrance and employed 2 physicians and a surgeon. Their duties involved assisting in inspecting all immigrants for health issues and providing limited care to those who became sick at the facility. The hospital also received applications for admissions to the homeless shelters and medical facilities on Randall's and Ward's Islands and coordinated passages for those approved to enter the facilities. Now, this is what a lot of people don't talk about. The amount of disease and sickness that was down there at Castle Garden and Ellis Island. Let me see if Google gonna be on this. Let me see if Google gonna be on this. Can you please expound on the amount of disease and sickness that was going on at the ports through Ellis Island and Castle Garden? Medical screening, Castle Garden, 1855 to 1890, was designated to catch infectious sickness before it entered the general public. While millions passed through, roughly 10% were pulled aside for detailed exams, though fewer than 2% were permanently barred or deported for health concerns. Common sickness and disease concerns: trachoma, a contagious bacterial eye infection that caused severe scarring and blindness. It accounted for nearly half of all detained medical cases. Hold up. Now, mind you, these are the white people coming through the ports. These are the disease-ridden whites. So now they got trichomonas, or trachoma, which is a contagious bacterial eye infection that causes severe scarring and blindness. Then there's respiratory illness. Tuberculosis, pneumonia, and diphtheria spread easily in crowded steerage ship holds. Childhood diseases, measles, scarlet fever, mumps, and whooping cough frequently struck young travelers. This all the disease they brought up for him. They bought this over here. I don't care what nobody says. Parasitic and scalp infections. Fungal conditions like fevers, a severe contagious scalp fungus was heavily flagged. There's more. Mental and physical disabilities, epilepsy, insanity, senility, and physical weakness that limited a person's ability to work. These are the whites coming in to America. And this is just what they named. This ain't everything. This is what they telling us. These is the whites. These is the whites for all these years that we've been thinking was here. That's the whites. Oh, yeah, that's them. That's them. That's them. Disease ridden. Some of them were barred. They say less than 2% were barred from entering. And they said a small percentage of them were pulled aside for medical intervention. But even that was just limited medical intervention. Information Bureau. The Information Bureau was built around 1866 to provide immigrants with information about New York City and a waiting room where friends and family of immigrants could meet their loved ones. The building was located to the left of the main gate of Castle Garden and also served as the place for immigrants to find a list of approved boarding houses for lodging. These lists included daily reports of the number of guests staying in them, reports of depot officers who had inspected their houses, and all complaints made against the houses. After every immigrant was registered, they were assembled within the Castle Garden Rotunda, and the names of those with families or friends waiting were called out. At the same time, those with letters or funds waiting for them were directed to the forwarding department. It says those who wanted to communicate with friends outside of the facility were directed to the letter writing bureau, where multilingual clerks assisted in writing and sending their correspondence. It is unclear where these departments were located in the facility, though it is possible they would have been inside the Information Bureau. Labor Exchange. The Castle Garden Labor Exchange was built in 1867 to help immigrants find work in the city and surrounding areas. So now they're getting jobs. So far, they got medical treatment. Now they're getting jobs and information as well on where to go. Now here's the Labor Exchange. It says the exchange was located on the depot grounds next to the hospital and was built on additional land granted by the city, of course. And the center of the building was a railed off space for officers and employers. Immigrants were separated to either side of the facility based on gender and subdivided again according to skills or length of residency. It says, and those with and without references. Each immigrant on entering was resulted or requested to state their name, ship, date of arrival, and character of employment. Every employer was required to enter their name, residence, and recommendation, references, and description of labor wanted. It sounds like that job shit we got now. What is it, Indeed? Where you be finding jobs? It's the same system. It's just now it's how do you say it? Digital. Back then it was on paper. So now these people are coming in through the labor exchange and they can find work, but it's only work inside of New York. But over there, they put in what they have and their characteristics, and then the jobs will come in and say if they want to hire them or not. Oh, they setting these immigrants up good. Leaving Castle Garden. Once an immigrant was ready to leave the facility, the outer doors of the Castle Garden Immigrant Depot will open wide and a large mass will pour through. Awaiting them just outside was Battery Park, where many would take a moment to sit, relax, and take in the moment as they prepare to begin a new life in America. And here you go. Immigrants of Castle Garden in Battery Park. So after they went through all of that, They would go outside to the park where they had a great view, and most of them would sit and just ponder on their new life in America. And again, these are the ancestors or the forefathers of the white people we see today. Now, not all, because a lot of the white people we see today are literally like first and second generation. But a large number of the ones we've been seeing since childhood, this is their ancestors. If they're not clones, they either clones or they came through one of these ports. Okay? And again, the witchcraft on us is to make us believe that they belong here and we are immigrants from Africa or we're slaves from Africa. That's the witchcraft. The quote said, it's not about who discovered America, but where the discovered landed. Don't that remind you of when Malcolm X said Plymouth Rock didn't land on, I didn't land on Plymouth Rock landed on us? Same thing. Same thing. Now, what was Black America thinking during this time? Because I was thinking to myself, while all of this was going on, what were we thinking? What were we talking about? How did we feel? And I can imagine if we are literally the people who own America, we built it, and all of these immigrants are coming in, all these new laws are happening. Mind you, all of this happening with the what do you call it? Black America is going through its own turmoil and trials during this time. What are the turmoils and trials? We got the Great Migration. Get me up here. We got the Great Migration happening, which it happened more than once. They like to only give us the last one, but they migrated us a bunch. We got slavery happening, the Great Migration happening. We fighting all these Indian wars, 90 going west. So while we fighting Gullah wars, Indian wars, Seminole wars, we fighting all of these wars because all of the Indian wars is us versus them. If you ever see an Indian war anywhere, just know that that Indian war means Black America versus these enemies. So we're fighting all of these wars while in the meantime, they're pouring in immigrants from Europe all into America. They coming in with diseases. They don't have no money, no language, no names, none of that. Hold on. Let me see if Google gonna be honest again. Did any immigrants get names when they came through ports like Ellis Island and Castle Garden? It says no, immigrants did not get new names or have their names changed by officials at Ellis Island. This idea is a very common family legend, but historians and the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island foundations confirm this myth. So if even the people saying they got their names up there, how the hell can Ellis Island say it's a myth? Because it says historians and the statue, no, this idea is a very common family legend. This is why it's important to know how to read and discern and find the truth. Because Google, if you only look at the very first part of the answer, you'll think, no, nobody got new names. It was a family legend that they all got their names through there. They got their names through there, man. That's where they got their names through, right there. Don't let them tell you that's something different. That's where they got their names from. Anytime the family legend says that's where they got their name from, that's where they got it from. Now, what was Black America thinking during this time? Frederick Douglass and a couple of other people had a few things to say, but I'm going to pull up some articles. Look what Frederick Douglass said. He wrote extensively about the crisis. In an 1853 essay, he lamented, every hour sees us dash from some position of shared exploitation by the eager, hungry swarm of total strangers from the old world. The old occupations by which we live are passing from our hands into the foreign ones. Do y'all know what that means? All he's saying is, basically, as all of these new immigrants come in, the way in which we knew America to be is being passed from us to them. So now our paradise is shifting from us to theirs. That's all he's saying. The things that we loved and endeared and loved about this country is now being taken away from us and given to them. Let's see what Booker T. Washington had to say. And I got an article on all of this. Hold on. Look at Booker T. He says, in his famous 1895 Atlanta Compromise, let me see if I can make this smaller again. in his famous 1895 Atlanta Compromise speech, explicitly pleaded with white industrialists to stop looking to foreign immigrants to fill factory jobs. He urged them, hold on, let me see if I can scroll down. He urged them to cast down your buckets where you are and hire the millions of Black Americans who had cleared their forests and built their railroads rather than have these foreign birth and strange tongues. Oh, I'm sorry, rather than those of foreign birth and strange tongues. So back up. He says, cast down your bucket. I've heard that before. Where you are, and hire the millions of Black Americans who had cleared their forests and built their railroads, rather than those of foreign birth and strange tongue. You know what Booker T was saying? Instead of y'all hiring these disease-filled goddamn foreigners, you need to come over here and hire these Black Americans. We have all of the experience and we have all of the damn knowledge. That's what they're saying. Okay? And I'm going to get into a few articles from this because I think it's important that we know what we were going through when all of these people were coming through here. Hold on, let me pull this up. I'm going to pull up a couple of articles. It is very important that we know what was going through our minds when all of these people were coming in through here, basically staking claim on our land. Now, mind you, remember they hate us. Remember, these immigrants hate us. These are the people they're going to use to create the KKK. These are the people they're going to use to put in positions of power through politics. All of this. These are the people that they are using. They're using these people on purpose because they need these people to be to replace us. They need to become the Americans while we become something other, okay? Or the immigrant. It's a destiny swap. They need us to be the immigrant and them to be the American. Sorry. So I asked Google, I said, what were the Black indigenous population thinking when all of these immigrants were pouring in through Ellis Island, Castle Garden, and Angel Island? This is what I asked. Now, at first, they tried to give me some bullshit about the Black people from Africa who came on a boat, who would later be known to be the African Americans, and how they immigrated and how they mixed in with the... That's bullshit. I had to re-ask it again. What did the Black indigenous population, that's us, Black Americans, what were we thinking and what was going through our heads? Let's get into what Wikipedia had to say. Let's let them lie. It says, for people with origins in both, and I ain't worried about that, Black Indians are Native American people of African American heritage. Oh my God, I hate the internet. Wikipedia says Black Indians are Native American people of African American heritage. What the fuck does that mean? Or a person of African American descent with a strong cultural ties to Native American communities. Are y'all following this? They want us to believe that these Black indigenous people are either Native American people who have African American heritage, or they're African Americans who identify with Native Americans. That's all they saying. Girl, this is crazy. Let's scroll down because we don't need to get ourselves all engulfed in all of these lies. Oh my God. Girl, you cannot make this up. Matter of fact, let me go to the next article because I think this one is more or less about who are Black Americans or Black indigenous people. Let's move on. Centers for Immigration Studies. It says, we are approaching the 100th anniversary of Immigration Act of 1924. Y'all, we got to get into this. No, I don't want to do this yet because this is later. I'm going to come back to this one. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm going to come back to this. Now, I open the articles backwards. Let me share this article first. Then I'll get to that one because that's in 1924. African American leaders or Black American leaders who have long called for tougher immigration laws. Now, this is your boy, Frederick Douglass. He didn't like the immigrants coming in. What's his name? A few of the leaders did not like that all of these immigrants were coming into America, taking Black American jobs, and even taking over our land and everything. It says Frederick Douglass was one of the many African American leaders over the past 140 years to argue that lax immigration has harmed the employment and opportunities of African Americans. It says taking a hard stance on illegal immigration will increase employment opportunities for unemployed African American workers. In 2014, the U.S. Census Department and the Department of Labor reported that there were 8 million undocumented immigrants in the U.S. working or looking for work, making up 5% of the civilian labor force. At the same time, there were over 31 million African Americans legally able to gain employment, and more than 4 million of them unemployed. A 13%, they love that number, a 13% unemployment rate. Many of these people lived in Philadelphia. It says Black leaders like W.E.B. Du Bois, Frederick Douglass, Marcus Garvey, and Booker T. Washington all spoke out against immigration during their time. They saw how the hell could Meatball speak about immigration, and he's an immigrant his damn self. Maybe he was speaking about Jamaica. I don't know. They saw the effects it had on the African-American worker, both in cities and in rural America. Jobs that were held by African-Americans were being taken by European and Chinese immigrants, which created an unemployment cataclysm for Black Americans already facing intense racial and economic discrimination at the time. So here it is. While they're pouring all these immigrants in and they coming in and finding jobs, they're taking our jobs. We're the ones qualified, yet and still jobs are hiring these immigrants. And I'm pretty sure that these companies were incentivized to do so. It says during the second industrial revolution of the late 1800s and early 1900s, Black Americans fought back against pro-immigration legislation. In 1879, Frederick Douglass explained the negative role of Chinese immigration on the African American worker. Quote, they would rather have laborers who will work for nothing, but as they cannot get to the Negro on these terms, they want Chinamen. The loss of the Negro is to gain them the Chinese. And if the things work well, abolition and their opinion will have proved itself to be another blessing in disguise. What is he saying? He's saying that now they're replacing Black American workers with Chinese workers. And listen, they love to say Chinese people built and all of these other people built the city or the country. They did not. But all they did was take us out of the jobs, put them in the jobs, and then wrote down in history that they built America. Okay? That's all they did. They literally made it hard for us to find jobs. They gave them all the jobs. And like Frederick Douglass said, they're replacing the Negro worker with the Chinaman. It says Black leaders openly spoke out against European, Mexican, and Chinese immigration. In 1895, Booker T. Washington, in one of the most famous speeches, discussed the issue of immigrant workers taking jobs from African Americans. Washington's Atlanta Compromise address of 1895 targeted industrialists who were employing immigrant labor instead of American-born Blacks. Quote, to those of you who look to the incoming of those of foreign births, cast down your buckets where you are. We shall stand by you with a devotion that no foreigner can approach, ready to interlace our industrial, commercial, civil, and religious life with yours. Now, this is the problem, Frederick Douglass. This is why I ain't like this nigga. Because you know, Frederick Douglass' whole idea to Black America was if we played nice with the cracker, he gonna give us a good job. Yeah, we can have our own stuff, but we got to play nice with the cracker. We got to show the cracker that we can work hard like them. That was his ideology. I ain't like that. I didn't like it at all, to be honest. Okay? So now he's telling the people, cast down your buckets where you are. And look, I got some good old boys, some good Negroes that'll work real good for you, and they loyal. In 1928, the soon-to-be business manager of the NAACP, George Schuler, stated the obvious on Mexican immigration. Quote, if the million Mexicans who have entered the country have not displaced Negro workers, whom have they displaced? So what he's saying is, y'all invited 1 million Mexicans into the country, and they all got jobs. Where you think they get their jobs from? Us, okay? It says, more recently, African-American Congresswoman Barbara Jordan, who chaired the U.S. Commission on Immigration Reform in the 1990s, took a stance for stiffer immigration policies that seem conservative by current standards. It says, quote, hold on, let me scroll down. The credibility of immigration policy can be measured by a simple yardstick. People who should go get it, do get it. People who should not get it and are kept out, and people who are judged deportable and required to leave. And in March of 2016, Peter N. Carisno, I don't know who that is, a member of the U.S. Civil Rights, who the fuck is that? He sounds clear. A member of the U.S. Civil Rights Commission explained in a U.S. Senate hearing that illegal immigration has disproportionately negatively effect on the wages and employment levels of blacks, particularly black males. Now, listen, this reminds me of today. I think of the 2020 election, the 2016 election, and the 2010 election. Was it 2008? All of them elections from Obama on up. It always talks about the immigrant. The immigrant. Immigrants built this country. Without immigrants, you guys wouldn't be here. The immigrant, the immigrant, the immigrant. That's all you hear all across the political sphere. That's where they do most of the witchcraft, because everybody's attention is on politics, right? So what do? They reinforce this narrative that these immigrants built the country, when the fact of the matter is they did not. All they did was pour them in like this. All they did was pour them into the country, gave them a name, gave them occupations, but they didn't give them any old occupations. They gave them our occupations. So Black Americans, by and large, were being laid off, fired, suspended, all kinds of shit, so that these jobs can be open for the immigrants. We literally saw it happen in 2024, I'm sorry. All of the immigrants that came into America. Y'all remember this? Remember we was able to find that these people were getting all of these benefits, these SNAP benefits. Y'all remember this? This is a picture and a receipt from an immigrant. They literally was giving them $5,000 a month in cash, $20,000 a month in food stamps. These were the set-asides they were giving these immigrants. Not only that, when you look at who's building houses, it's mostly Mexicans. When you look at who's building buildings, it's mostly Mexicans and clears. They literally knocked us all the way out of the park. We don't have no stake in the claim in the fight on building America today, because they literally took us after we built it all, after we built everything. They removed us and replaced us with the immigrant. Same thing they're doing right now. Same thing they're doing right now. Let me move to this next article. Let's get into these black leaders. It says Black leaders in the United States immigration policy, 1917 to 1929. Before we get into that, let's get into the 1924 Immigration Act. Matter of fact, we'll get to it. It says World War I broke a long period of decline in the position of Black Americans. Despite the spread of Jim Crow in the federal government during the Wilson administration and the maintenance of rigid segregation in the armed forces during the war, many Blacks felt that the conflict would usher in a new era. Democracy would be revitalized at home and abroad. It says, we believe our second emancipation will be the outcome of the war, exclaimed the Grand Master of Texas Negro Masons, in the 1918. Black optimism was not rooted primarily in Woodrow Wilson's wartime rhetoric about making the world safe for democracy and ensuring self-discrimination of all peoples. Rather, Blacks were inspired by the expectation that their contributions at home and on the battlefield would earn them unqualified acceptance in their land of birth. It says, equally important, the stimulus of the war to the domestic economy had reached many Black workers, spurred by reports of wages well in excess of traditional levels and a better climate of race relations during the war, hundreds of thousands of spurred by reports of wage wells in excess of the traditional levels and of a better climate of race relations. During the war, hundreds of thousands of Southern Blacks joined the Great Migration to the Promised Land. Okay, so it's saying during World War I, hundreds of Blacks gathered and they started migrating from the South to the North. Now, a lot of this migration is for work, and a lot of it is because they're running away from the KKK. It says most of the jobs available to Afro-Americans were created by the expansion of the nation's economy. They needed us to expand the railroad and things of that nature. However, existed as a result of the war's impact on migration. In the decade prior to the outbreak of war, almost 1 million aliens entered into the country each year. Between 1915 and 1919, immigration fell to a yearly average of about 250,000. Furthermore, many aliens returned to Europe to fight for their homeland. As James Weldon Johnson, no they didn't, remarked in a New York Age editorial of 1915, one man's ills, another man's good. It says, encouraged by admonitions from their leaders, Black workers aim to achieve maximum benefits from opportunities afforded by their war emergency. Immigrants, Black noted, had contributed to the worsening of the conditions. Hello, it says immigrants, Black noted that immigrants had conditioned to the worsening conditions of the race in the generation preceding the Great War. While in the Southern or South segregation, disenfranchisement, and the sharecropping system undermined their freedom, in the North and West masses of new white workers had displaced Negroes in many occupations once open to them. As a native-born Protestant, Black Americans had shared most of their fears, which led to growing numbers of white Americans in the late 19th and early 20th centuries to question the wisdom of maintaining the nation's open-door immigration policy. Also, like whites, they had difficulty devising a program to curtail the flow of aliens. Despite their treatment in America, Blacks were committed to the ideals of nation and were uneasy about breaking the heritage of welcoming the oppressed to the world. So basically, Black Americans during this time are figuring out ways to combat the fact that we're losing our jobs. So we got to create our own opportunities. Not only that, we got to make sure that we give opportunities to each other. We got Black leaders that are writing to the country saying, hey, y'all putting all of these immigrants in the country and giving them all of the resources that belong to Black Americans. And I find this quite odd with Frederick Douglass, because that was the whole point of him. He was a plant too. And his whole purpose was to come here, or not come here, but to have Black Americans believe that we are from a foreign land, but that we're good here. So the fact that he had something to say was odd. Maybe they told him to say it. I don't know. But either way, the point is, these foreigners are taking over our jobs, and Black America is not here for it. We don't like it. We don't like nothing about it, okay? Now, this is the last article we're going to get to before I get into a video that I have. Hold on. I want to get back to that 1924 Immigration Act. Let me see. Maybe Google could explain it to us if I can't find it. Can you explain the 1924 Immigration Act? Hold on.
The 1924 Immigration Act, also known as the Johnson-Reed Act, was a strict law limiting annual immigration. It established a quota system that favored Northern and Western European immigrants while banning most Asian immigration and creating the U.S. Border Patrol.
It created a national origin quota system favoring Northern and Western Europeans. See, this is why them Asians started complaining at Angel Island. Because, see, they thought they were going to get good treatment like white folks, and they didn't. I see. The Immigration Act of 1924 limited the number of immigrants allowed entry into the United States through a national origin quota. The quota provided immigrant visas to 2% of the total numbers of the people of each nationality in the United States as of the 1890 national census. They lying. It completely excluded immigrants from Asia. In 1917, the U.S. Congress enacted the first widely restrictive immigration law. The uncertainty generated over national security during World War I made it possible for Congress to pass this legislation and included several important provisions that paved the way for the 1924 Act. The 1917 Act implemented a literacy test that required immigrants over 16 years old to demonstrate basic reading comprehension in any language. It also increased the tax paid by new immigrants upon arrival and allowed immigration officials to exercise more discretion in making decisions over who or whom to exclude. Finally, the act excluded from entry anyone born in a geographical defined Asiatic barred zone, except for Japanese and Filipinos. Ooh. In 1907, the Japanese government had voluntarily limited Japanese immigrants to the United States in the Gentleman's Agreement. I remember hearing about that. It says the Philippines, I'm going to write that down, the Gentleman's Agreement. The Philippines was a U.S. colony, so its citizens were U.S. nationals and could travel freely to the United States. China was not included in the barred zone, but the Chinese were already denied immigration visas under the Chinese Exclusion Acts. Wow. So the 1924 Immigration Act, I'm sorry, y'all. The 1924 Immigration Act is what they were using. This is what they did. They told Black America, we're going to put in this Immigration Act and it's going to stop. We're going to slow down with all of these immigrants coming in. And Black America was like, cool. Finally, thank you. Now we can get some relief. Turns out that wasn't what they did. They told us that to shut us up. What they did was they just basically barred certain people from coming in. They didn't bar the people coming in. They just said only certain people can come in. And let's fast forward to 1960s. Because remember, this enemy is not smart. He's just clever. So if we fast forward to the 1950s and the 1960s, remember, they're only allowing certain immigrants to come in through 1924 in the immigration law, right? They're only allowing certain immigrants to come into America. So in the 1950s, in the 1960s, let me show you how the government played reverse psychology on us, Black America. During the 1950s and the 60s, during the Civil Rights Movement, they made it seem to us like they were doing us a favor by allowing all of the African and other Black immigrants into the country. You know how I know that's true? Because Black Americans literally fought for the right for other Black melanated immigrants to come into the country. And the way they got us to fight for them to come is they made it to us like, oh, we don't like Black people. And since we don't like Black people, we're only going to allow white people to come to America. And Black Americans being all kumbaya, Black Americans being all we one big Negro, what did we say? Oh, that's not right. If y'all are going to have all these white immigrants come in, you need to let the Black ones come in too. So we went down and we beat the pavement through Martin Luther King. He's another plant. Martin Luther King and all of these people on the Civil Rights Movement. They all got us to buy into the idea of inviting Black immigrants to offset the white ones when that was a whole play. Because we shouldn't have had none of them. The white ones shouldn't have came and the Black ones shouldn't have came neither. Because once we allowed the Black ones to come in, now we're dealing with destiny swapping. Do you get it? Now we're here in 2026, windmilling with our head down for our goddamn identity. It was a play. It was a play. It was a play. Instead of us fighting for the Black immigrants to come in the 1950s and the 60s, Black America, by and large, should have been up there telling whoever it was, we don't want no immigrants in this bitch. And as a matter of fact, if you're a new immigrant, your ass gotta go. We should have turned into ICE in the 50s and the 60s. But they played us. They tricked us. They made us believe that we were doing something for us if we allowed other Black immigrants in. And look where we are. crazy work. Let me show y'all this video I got. Crazy work. You see how it's easy to get played? But again, the reason they were able to play with us like that, Black America, is simply because what? Why? Simply because we were emotional. They used our emotions against us. This is why they always want us heart over head and not head over heart. Okay? They will always need us to be emotional. They do not want us to think, because if we stop being emotional and we think, we'll get to see clearly. They don't want that to happen. That's why they always keep, every time you turn around on the internet, some black boy getting shot or killed by a white person. It's always to keep you inside of your feelings so you never wake up to see what's really going on, okay? Now let's get into this video. Did I share the video? No. So this clear man does this video on Castle Garden, and we're going to get into a few things that he has to say. I don't know if we're going to listen to all of it, but we'll get into a few things he got to say. Y'all, let's get into it.
For you genealogy buffs, records buffs, ancestry searchers, researchers, if you want to know about Castle Garden, do you know what Castle Garden is? Do you know the extent of its importance to the United States history and our records and knowing who we are and where we come from? Well, this is going to be the best, most informative lecture situation for you here. We're going to look over Castle Garden immigration records and a bit about history about the place, because there are places like Castle Garden and Castle Clinton, which are known in different circles, but actually are the same thing. So we're going to talk about why, and we're going to look at where to find the records, and we're going to leave you with everything that you need to know to get started, especially if you are into genealogy. So again, thank you for, okay, if you have not heard of Castle Garden, maybe you have, maybe you've heard of Ellis Island. If you have heard of Ellis Island, obviously, you may or may not know that there is a related site that predates, when I say site, I mean a physical processing location that processed immigrants coming into the United States that predates Ellis Island. So if you're looking for genealogical records and you're like, can't find it on an Ellis Island site, well, hey, we got you hooked up, because Castle Garden is the predecessor. And thankfully, as I'm sort of trying to allude to, both sites are connected via records nowadays. But it's good to know which was which and which populations, or at least time periods or ranges of years that they served. And so we're going to start off with the term Castle Garden, okay? And it's also known by Castle Clinton, okay? So when we use the terms throughout this video here, Castle Garden and Castle Clinton, right now they are interchangeable in the present day, okay? Castle Clinton, Castle Garden. When we speak of immigration records and genealogy, Castle Garden is what it is known as, okay? It later became Castle Clinton, and for various reasons that we'll talk about. But it was the very first immigration processing station in the United States, okay, before Ellis Island, okay? So it was the very first, which predated even Ellis Island. And the important part is your records may be there. So that's why it's super important to know, if you're researching where your ancestors came in through the port of New York between 1855 and 1954. That's like almost 100 years, isn't it? So it's very, very important.
Y'all don't find it odd that only 388,000 Africans, according to them, through slavetrade.org, they're saying only 388,000 Africans came in here. But they want us to believe millions upon millions upon millions of clears came here. They don't have that many crackers here right now. They do not have this many crackers here today in 2026. But they want you to believe that. I'm telling you, this is all one big illusion. They do not have that many crackers here right now. And if they had 12 million in the 1800s, I'm pretty sure it should be billions and trillions, right? It should be. Man, these people be playing.
A lot of people came through there, okay? So it is stationed in New York Harbor at the very lower tip of Manhattan Island, kind of across the bay from. And what makes it important, is that really, when you think about this, Castle Garden processed over 8 million immigrants between the years of 1855 and 1891. That's a lot. 8 million people passed through Castle Garden. So it's not something that's inconsequential to our research in our country. So Ellis Island took over the following year as the government-run facility from 1892 all the way up until 1854 and processed over 12 million people, right? So 4 million difference, 20 million total, right? Think about 20 million people that passed through both Castle Garden and Ellis.
He kind of going over what I was saying. I got something better. Hold on. Because he's kind of doing a lecture, kind of like what I just did. Hold on. Fair use, fair use, fair use.
And now there were new reasons to leave.
Let me back it up.
Industrial.
You never know how hard it was to leave her. That was the hardest thing I think I ever had to do.
She said, if you leave, why, I don't ever want you to come back again.
Long, hard life. Was.
Look how they living. Look. Look how they
Europe
living.
had always lost its children to America. And now there were new reasons to leave. Industrial change and political unrest had brought increased joblessness and poverty to Italy and Southern Europe. And reaching as far north as the industrial cities of Poland and Russia. In America, they were saying, there was a future, perhaps a fortune to be made. In the southern European ports of Naples, Piraeus, Trieste, and Constantinople, they gathered to board the ships to America. Some were birds of passage, leaving to seek work and return. Others with hopes to find at the end of the journey the good permanent life that awaited, they were told, 3,000 miles across the sea. In the rural areas of Eastern Europe, they had, in addition to poverty, other reasons to look to America. The government was taking young boys to the army. In a mother's lifetime, she might not see him again. And always there was the police, the historic persecutor of the Armenian, Slovak, and Jew.
You know what I see now? I see the peasant with a wagon and hay to take me away. The whole town was around my wagon. Everybody came to say goodbye. I didn't know how to say goodbye.
He's the white.
Poland, Russia, Romania. And everybody just wanted to get out of there.
He's the whites. Look at how poor.
Making their way to the railheads, they sought passage to the sea. Some had money for the journey, and some did not. But turning back was seldom an alternative.
Pay attention, because these is the descendants that we amongst. These, the bloodline is the bloodline. If you a hoe, your grandma was a hoe. And her grandma before her probably was a hoe. So if these were disease-ridden poor whites, then the ones I'm seeing around America are disease-ridden poor whites. You don't get the descendants that we're dealing with, the KKK, the racism, the hanging, that come from these people. I need y'all to understand that.
I didn't pay no tickets. Get out on train and play for luck.
They cared us just like you would care load a bunch of pigs. If you go move a bunch of calves, a bunch of pigs, would you put them in a passenger car? That's the way they looked at us.
For many, entering the great port cities of Northern Europe was like entering a new world. They had reached the sea, and the immigrant was now in the hands of the steamship company. Immigrants from the east and north swarmed into Bremen, Antwerp, Hamburg, and Liverpool to be processed for the passage to America. They stood in line together, those who saw America as an adventure, those who saw America as a beacon of hope. It was a business of numbers, an operation designed to house, feed, and process 4,000 people at a time, to identify those whom America...
I love this question. Somebody said, how did we let the ignorant lead us? We got tricked by our own people. So in order for this to work, some of us have to be working with them. So we got tricked and we still get tricked by our own people. Why you think Dr. Umar be on here telling y'all we African? Why you think Tariq Nasheed be on here saying we had an ethnogenesis? It's because of people like these guys that we're here. Because remember, if we had to just focus on, if it was just between us and listening to them, they wouldn't even be here. The only reason why they even here is because of Black Americans that work for them, that work with them. Do you understand? In politics, religion, in every factor, all of these Black Americans, why do you think, now do you see why they have the D9 and the Boule, and why these people cover all of the medical field and all of the law? Because those people work with them. Do you get it? That's the only reason why we're going through this is because there are a large number of Black Americans that are on their side. And they're part of that talented 10%. This is why W.E.B. Du Bois and the NAACP and the Buddha, this is why all of this exists. Because they need those people to keep us asleep so that we can continue to think that they are the people above us. I hope it's all making sense.
Authorities might reject and return to Europe at steamship expense.
First thing they do with you is delouse you. Look, your hair all. Your hair, if there was a knit in your hair, you would have to shampoo.
Fearing epidemics, huge facilities were established to fumigate clothing, baggage, and people. Processed and ticketed, they waited for their ship. They boarded in many parts of Europe and in many kinds of vessels, most to New York and some to other ports. But they had one thing in common. They were traveling steerage, and the steamship companies understood the profit in numbers.
Now remember, they want us to believe we came off a boat. Remember this boat they showed us? Hold on, let me go get the boat they showed us. Remember in school, they showed us this boat? Where the boat at? Remember they showed this to us? And remember, mind you, none of these are real pictures. These are all depictions, meaning somebody sat down and drew this shit up in a book. Remember, the whole transatlantic slave story is for us to believe that we came off a boat from Africa, and this is how they bought us. Remember? Whole time, it's a destiny swap. We didn't come off no boat from nowhere. They did. You see it? Can you see it? All of the roots, All of the transatlantic slave stories you heard about in school, in church, in college, all of that's made up and played out and fake. And that's why they get Black Americans to teach it to us, because it's easier for us to believe it. The only people came from a foreign land off a boat is everybody except Black America. We the only ones that were already here. Remember, they got us believing that we came off a boat from Africa when we didn't. It was them.
They began a journey that could last from a week to a month.
That was the last time it ever ran again. That was the last trip she made. She should have never made that one either.
For some, it would be a voyage without incident. For others, the crossing would provide days for which they were ill-prepared.
They gave us a tin plate with a fork and a spoon, a cup of soup, and that much bread, 15 days.
There's all one big room. I was in the cellar. There's little lights going on there all the time. Little lights. We were riding in the steerage like animals.
Look at how they living in that bitch.
You could see a lot of water, but we didn't see the sky. No sky.
To escape the throbbing engines and the odor of spoiled food, those with blankets came on deck for air.
She was sick all the time. People didn't know where the toilets were, and so they used it. It was a terrible life.
Y'all heard that? He said people didn't know where the toilets were, so they just went. That means these motherfuckers was shitting and pissing all up on the ship. No wonder it was stank and full of disease and people was dying. No wonder people stayed sick. These nasty bastards was on the ship not finding a toilet. They were just shitting and pissing everywhere. But remember, that's where they come from. Where they come from, they do that. Where they came from in Europe, that's what they did. They didn't bathe. They didn't brush their teeth and wash their face. No, they were shitting in the streets like these goddamn Nigerians. Just the same way. Go look it up, European history. They didn't know how to bathe until we taught them. Go look it up, it's documented. These mother pluckers was shitting and pissing in the streets. So when they got on the boat, they didn't care to look for a toilet. They shit and pissed on the boat. No wonder they had to send them through the hospital before they brought them out. Because these motherfuckers, if they wasn't sick when they got on there, they damn sure was sick when they got off.
I prayed one night that that ship would go down. It was so horrible. It had to stop for a while. For some, the waves was washing. I was very sick. I prayed it to go down.
There's only one thing in my mind. I wanted to get out of there and to come to America. It appeared like in a fog, and everybody went over to the railing and just admiring.
I thought I was in heaven. My God, is this a city on earth, or this is a city in heaven?
All them buildings we
Never
built.
seen a building that big, but beautiful.
All those buildings.
I have to cry.
This is the late 1800s, early 1900s. All of those buildings that they're seeing when they get off that boat were built by Black America. Remember, they're just getting there. So white people didn't build it. Asians wasn't there yet. So anything that they walk into was already there. That stuff that was already built by us. So when they get off the boat and they get to see the ocean or the lake or whatever it is, and they get to see the park and they get to see the tall buildings, all of those things were built by Black America, not the immigrant. They're just getting here. Okay?
Everybody was just waiting to get off that, standing waiting to get off that ship. You were just wondering where you were coming to or what was going to happen to you, you know, in your mind.
Still separated from the first class and cabin passengers who were processed by immigration officials on board, the immigrant from steerage waited yet another boat ride. This one from the Hudson River Pier to an island in the Upper Bay. Crowded into barges and ferries, they approached the place that had become a legend in their mind.
Built by us.
I couldn't get my eyes on that. It's great.
I was kind of glad to see Alice Island, as bad as it was. It was good to see any kind of land. It was.
According to the houses I left in my town, this was like a whole city. And I almost felt smaller than I am.
But when I came to these doors, I saw all these people there. I figured, well, I guess I'll have to stay here for good, probably, because all these
Thank you, Cookie, for the super chat, especially 1111. Thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate you.
people, what are they doing here? And nobody was happy. You don't know what's going to happen.
I had a coat and a dress and a pair of shoes. That's it.
One suitcase I had, maybe. And about $50, I guess.
Put yourself in these people's shoes. They coming off this disease-ridden boat with nothing in their pockets and a dream, but a dream. They get to America and the American government says, we'll give you land and we'll give you housing and we'll give you everything you need as long as you be racist to the indigenous people or what we know today as the Black Americans. Now do you see why they were so gung-ho on killing us, hanging us, shooting us, raping us, running in our houses and taking our shit? The reason why all of that happened is not because you're Black. Your skin color is the last reason why they did it. They did it because they were poor, disease-ridden whites who had nothing. And they were told in order to get something, they had to go to war with us. So when they got off these boats, they were ready, more than ready, to go to war with the indigenous people, aka the Black Americans. This is why it was nothing when the government said we wanted to create the KKK. They were volunteering by the droves. What else did they have to look forward to? They didn't have nothing else. And I'm pretty sure a lot of those people were incentivized to join the Klan. Hey, we'll give you room and board if you come join the. I'm pretty sure that happened. Yep, just like the Africans. Okay, so this is why when we wonder, I always used to ask myself, these people are just so horrible, they so mean, they so demonic. Why do they hate us so much? Now I understand. They hate us because they know exactly who we are, but more importantly, they know exactly who they are. And they are incentivized very heavily to make you believe that you're African off a boat. This is why they will tell you any day, oh yeah, the transatlantic slave story. But they never want to talk about them coming off a boat through Angel Island, Ellis Island, and Castle Garden. You will never hear crackers talk about that. But when it's time to talk about the transatlantic slave, they all ears and they ready to talk. Why? Because that puts them above you and puts you below them. Because that means they were already here and you came off the boat. But we've been proven and we've shown that that's not the truth. We were already here and they came off a boat. So ladies and gentlemen, white people are destiny swapping and have been destiny swapping with us since they got here for the term for the identity of the American. So yes, we've dealt with destiny swapping with the white folks too. They want to be the American while they call us the African American. Now that's why when you always heard white people, they never say, "Oh, I'm Sicilian American," or I'm English American, or I'm Sicilian American. You will never hear them say it. They will only say American, but then they'll look at you and put something in front of your name. They'll tell you you are African American, or you are this American, or you that. They will never just call you an American, but they get to be called the American. Destiny swapping, destiny swapping, destiny swapping. Okay.
My biscuit, my little biscuit, that's all I have with me.
Oh crap, did I delete it? Wait, hold on. I think I closed the window. I wasn't trying to close that window. Hold up. I was not trying to close that window. Did I? Yeah, I think I did. Shit. Hold on, let me pull it back up. I'll grab it. It's right. It should be in my history. Sorry, y'all. My bad. I made a mistake and closed out the video. I did not mean to do that. Hold up. I'll put it back up. Maybe. All right. Let me share the video. My bad, y'all. I was trying to close those other windows and close that one. My bad.
You're lucky to have the one. We had no other possessions but that. We had no baggage. We had nothing.
Nothing except the clothes. We had nothing.
You heard him? We had nothing except the clothes. We had nothing. This is telling you what they came here with. They didn't even come here with names. They had nothing.
Clinging to their possessions, they entered the great building and climbed the stairs.
Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, I says, where am I?
They would come right into the big hall, and there they were told to sit and stay there. And they didn't know where they were. It was a new land, but they haven't been in land. It was just a big hall. And all you could get was tears and crying of the children.
For the vast majority, the process would last less than a day. But now they waited. Those from Europe and the Near East, with those who had arrived from the Caribbean. Those who were the first in their family to come to America, with those who would be met. Those who came to make money in return, with those who were determined never to return.
So they all had this fear, this worry. They were worried about police because they were always checked in the other countries.
The word government frightened me. Government was tyranny. Government was officers who looked at you with the sense that they wanted to hate you or eliminate you. And the idea that there is democracy or that the policeman will help you was very new to me. The policeman, to me, was someone who could cut my head off.
It was the most dangerous thing for everybody to go through. The eyes.
Trachoma, the dreaded disease of the immigrant, the diagnosis for which could lead to almost certain deportation.
Trachoma.
If there's anything that put a chalk mark here. Chalk mark there.
Those identified to be set aside for possible rejection represented a small percentage examined each day.
Bullshit.
But this was little consolation to a family separated.
You didn't have to know the people, but you know that somebody's missing. The agony they went through. So you know that somebody's missing in the family.
All of a sudden, the thought, my goodness, they're separating us, because that's what the police always did. They separated the men from the women and then took care of the women and children. As long as some member of the family, some loving member of the family was with you, life was tolerable. You lived in a relationship of family love. Even though the other members of the family, you didn't know where they were. You could converse, you could plan, you could warm each other.
I had a feeling that I'm left all alone. It's a terrible feeling. All of a sudden they were gone.
Tell him he has smallpox.
America did not want the burden of an unhealthy immigrant. America wanted a person who could make a living and was not bringing into the country an infectious disease.
And they looked your back over and your lungs and your heart and everything. And you were sent from one to the other, one doctor to the other.
And a lot of people was put away on the side.
I wouldn't want to have been sent back.
People were rejected because they showed outward signs of illness, what they considered mental difficulties. We didn't call it psychiatry, they called it neurology. And we said, we're sorry. And the ship that brought them had to take them back. That was a tragedy. I decided if they ever have to send me back.
Them some inbreds right here. What the fuck going on here? Them some inbreds right here. Them some sisters and brothers having children.
I'll jump down to the water and never go back to Russia. I never want to see it again.
Built for 1,500, the dining room often fed 3,000.
There would be dishes and forks and knives and white napkin, long tables, well set. But when the people went in, it was like chaos. and they handed us food. Food was not something people gave you. I didn't like it, but then I tasted it again, and I never had seen a banana before.
To me, this white bread was like...
This white man said he had never seen a banana before. Did y'all catch that? He said they gave me food and I didn't like it. He said, but then when I tried it again, he could eat it. He said, I had never seen a banana before. You know why that is? Because bananas are indigenous to America, the Americas. Most of the things that the world have get from us. I keep telling y'all that. We have been conditioned and indoctrinated to believe that this is normal all over the land, that everybody has access and have always had access to the things that we have. The only reason why the crackers got it now is because they over here taking over us. But like the white boy just said, he had never seen a banana before a day in his life prior to coming to Castle Garden. That goes to show you the level of whites they bringing in here. This who they bringing in here. Keep this in mind.
Cake already.
At night, Ellis served as a dormitory for thousands, waiting the new day. Each morning, the great hall would fill, and the noise would begin again. Hopefully, their papers were in order, a clean bill of health, a letter from a relative guaranteeing they would not become a public charge, proof that they were not a contract laborer or a dangerous alien. In adjacent rooms, the detained were given additional scrutiny and an opportunity to make their case. But accepting an appeal to Washington, the Board of Inquiry was the rejected immigrants' last chance. Through an interpreter, they did their best to persuade him to overcome the complexities of a changing immigration law. But it was in the Great Hall where the vast majority faced their first and their last test. In his hand, the man at the registry desk held the ship's manifest. In his power, the right to interpret questions intended to identify those who should be let in or kept out.
They know a word of English.
I couldn't understand English, not one word.
First question, how much money have you got?
She had to have 5 pounds. My father, I remember, gave me that 5 pounds.
Do you know how long? It took a couple of years, 2 and 3 years, to get that $25.
My mother, when we got near and the person at the desk called our names, my mother turned to me, she says, I was never here. How does she know my name? I said, it's all right, Mom. She knows it.
They asked for my name, and I told them Licht. They say, how do you spell it? Well, I didn't know how to spell it, and they didn't know it, and they spelled it Licht. I said, it's all right for me. I don't know the difference.
But then they said, all right, you can go.
You're free to go.
To Hoboken. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question. If you come in through Ellis Island or through Castle Garden and you don't know what your name looks like on paper, and you give them your name and they write it down, how the hell you know what it is? They were giving, listen, this is what the government don't want you to know and what the internet don't want you to know. They were given names and identities at these ports, okay? Not only were they given names and identities, some of them were let go into the wild. But the mass majority of them, they were putting them in specific places. Remember, they're not just opening the borders and letting a whole bunch of people in and figuring it out when they get there. They were letting these people come here so that they needed them to feel the South. Remember, in the 1800s, they had not made the Louisiana Purchase yet. When they finally did, they occupied a whole bunch of land in the South that was predominantly Black American. And they're going to incentivize these whites right here. They're going to say, hey, when you come in through Ellis Island, we got some land for you. It's in Savannah, Georgia. The only thing is, we're going to need you to do X, Y, and Z. You're going to have to be racist. You're going to be in a status above the people that are there. And we're going to put systems in place to make sure that that is run that way. This is what they did. These people got everything they needed through these ports. That was the purpose of the ports, so that they can give them identities and things. They'll never tell you, but that's what it was.
There would still be questions of what food to buy for the railroad trip to Chicago and the boat trip to Boston. There was still the strange names, the strange numbers, and the fear of losing one's money. There was the process of buying a ticket to places with unpronounceable names like Pittsburgh, Hamtramck, and Keokuk. But those were details. The island had passed them through. The door to America had opened.
It was as if God's great promise had been fulfilled.
I've gone into a free land. I don't think I ever can explain that feeling that I had that time. There isn't such a thing to be explained. It came out of my system. It's over.
It's not my native land, but it means more to me than my native land. It means more to me than my native land.
Heard him? It means more to me than my native land.
Any country on earth, this never happened. And then become a human being again. It's a miracle.
I'm glad I'm here. Couldn't be any better, could it?
And everybody had hopes. And one thing I was sure, and thousands like me, that the degradation, the abuse, and the privation that we had in Europe, we wouldn't have here.
Oh, God, yes. Hoping for centuries.
I've had enough. That's damn near the end of the damn documentary. But listen, what you're seeing is a window into how the white people got to America. The biggest trick that they got us believing is that we came off of a boat from Africa and they were already here. But that's a destiny swap. White people are the first people to come into our country and destiny swap with us. Get me up here. White people were the first groups of people, Europeans. They were the very first group of people to come into America and destiny swap with Black America. How did they do it? They made up stories and said that they were already here, and then they told us we came off of a boat from Africa. And that has been reinforced through school, church, media, and everywhere on the earth. When the fact of the matter is quite the opposite. We didn't come from nowhere. This is why you can never find a slave ship anywhere. This is why you will never find a slave ship, because it doesn't exist. It was made up and written on paper. They are cavemen. They come from further than that. But we speaking about their origin here. Listen, they made those stories up on paper and reinforced them through real life. They got Black Americans to help them do it. This is why Black Americans will come on media and teach us about African history. Remember the the African Episcopal, whatever it is, the AME church. That all of that was done. These are all little small nuggets planted so that when we get in 2026, we will be so discombobulated and confused, which we are, that we wouldn't know where we came from. We will be fighting each other on where we came from, when the fact of the matter is, we didn't come from nowhere. We was already here. They came from somewhere. And the biggest and the earliest destiny swap we've had, Black America, is we've allowed the white folks to come their disease-ridden po-ass off them ships and call themselves American. And we've also allowed those po-ass whites to turn around and call us African Americans. Do you understand the psychological warfare that just happened then? That's psychological warfare. That's all that is. And all of these Black Americans that y'all know and love, who always tell y'all, oh, Ghana giving away free land. Black Americans, we are Africans. We need to get in touch with our African roots. The mass majority of those people are paid a lot of money to make you believe that your roots are in Africa. It don't matter if you believe you FBA and we had an ethnogenesis. As long as you believe your roots come from Africa, they win, hand over fist. And that's why they pay these people the big bucks. That's why these people stay in the algorithm. That's why every time we turn around, it's another Black American telling us that we're African. They got paid to do that. They got paid to do that. Never forget that. They was paid a lot of money to come to you and tell you you African. Y'all ever notice why the Black Americans will tell us we African and we should move to Africa, but they never lived there themselves? It's because it's a play. It's a play. And when y'all leaders keep going traveling back and forth to Africa, know why? When your leaders keep traveling annually, sometimes biannually, back and forth to Africa, know why? We don't have no business out there. We don't have no exchange. Nothing in Africa is for Black America. But they pay them people a lot of money to come on this internet and tell y'all we had an ethnogenesis. Or to come on here and tell y'all he the prince of Pan-African and we all is African. Now you see why Umar was calling us American Africans? Don't let that go over your head. Now you see why Umar was calling us American Africans. That's because he wanted us to lean more on the African than American. Because if we lean on the African, we're not American. And the white folks, the disease-ridden poors, get to come off the boat and they get to say that they're American. Crazy work. You can't make it up. Thank you. Oh my God. Thank you so much for making it rain. I fucks with Boo. Thank you so much. This is dope. I love you so much. Thank you. I make it rain. I make it rain. I make it rain on them hoes. I make it rain. I make it rain on them hoes. Thank you so much. I fucks with Boo. He says, hey y'all, just sliding through to pay my tuition. Oh, and to support my girl. Boo, you have been the answer to all of the frustrations I had as a child. I just knew something was not right. You have given all of us the keys to freedom. I thank you. You are the angel with the pretty wings. Oh, they burned the records. Yes, they did. Thank you so much. OMG, thank you so much. I fucks with Boo. You really didn't have to do that, and you did. I'm so appreciative. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm so happy that I could help you clear up anything that I could. That's why I'm here. That's why God chose me to be here. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. Thank you so much. I fucks with you. I am so appreciative of you every single day. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Daisha, thank you so much for the super chat. Says, remember they said we would shit on each other on the slave ships? Right. Lie. It was them. On the slave stories, they tell us that because we were so packed in like sardines that we would vomit and shit and piss on each other. Put a 3 in the chat if y'all heard it. I remember it. Whole time it was them. Remember we just saw they was the ones shitting and pissing all up the ship. Them, not us. Destiny swap. Thank you, Daisha, for bringing that up. Thank you. Deanne, thank you so much, Deanna86, for the super chat. Says, loving this educational Friday. I tune in every Friday. I have learned so much from you, Boo. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. You're welcome. I appreciate it. I'm just doing what God called me to do. Thank you. Thank you. And look at Tough. Thank you again for this wonderful, amazing super chat. Thank you for making it rain. Oh. I make it rain. I make it rain. I make it rain on them hoes. I make it rain. I make it rain on them hoes. That was so lame of me. Thank you, Look at Tough. She says, great class, boo. Love you, girl. I love you too. And listen, y'all, this is why I do it. I don't care to have 1,000 people, 2,000 people, or 3,000. I just need the people who hear and want to learn. This is why Educational Friday is my favorite segment out of all of the segments. And if y'all been on my channel long enough, you know I've said this before. Educational Friday is my most favorite segment out of all the segments that I've created, simply because I love the idea of unlearning and relearning and sharing it with y'all. So thank y'all so much for being here. This is why I never I never monetize the video for ads, because I don't want the ads to interrupt us. This is a learning space, and that's what this is all about. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all so much for pulling up and coming through. I'll catch y'all next Friday, but either way, I'll catch y'all the weekend and also throughout the week for the morning jokes. If you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit voodoodolltvshop.com if you would like to get some merch. I love y'all so much. Pay the information forward and do your research. We were already here. See y'all later. Peace.
Can you hear me now? Oh, let's go! It's your boy Big Chew, the voice of the beat. You know what I won't blaze up. Come on, blaze up.
It's the beat for me.
Wow, 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 for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Drop it for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Do it for your guy, for your B-O-Y. Come on, baby, we live. For your boy. For your boy. Hustle for your boy. Fix it for your boy. Drop it for your, lift it up. You talk more shit than a little bit. Back to Mother Africa. That's bullshit. Without question, we are all Black Americans. You do not know a goddamn thing about Africa. I am from Detroit, Motown. So you can watch Tootsie your monkey ass back to Africa if you want to.
Mr. Carroll, how you give the voodoo doll time to talk? I don't get no fucking time to talk.
Who the voodoo doll is?
The nigga you just had up here.